In today's video, we're going to talk about when to list your home in Boulder, Colorado, or somewhere nearby along the Front Range. In this video, we're going to talk about a lot about the true market value of your home and how there are things that are within your control that affect that value and how there are things outside of your control that affect that value. And then we're going to take that information and look at the Boulder real estate market specifically and how you might want to take that information to determine when is the best time for you specifically to list your home. Because at the end of the day, you may decide to list your home at a very different time from your neighbor based on the information that I'm going to share with you here today. So let's get into it. Now, before we go any further in the conversation, I want to share something that is really important for you to keep in mind, and that is the importance of staying as logical as you can when it comes to listing your home. Now, I know it's your home, you're very emotionally invested. This is the place you've lived. It means a lot to you. And also, there is a lot of money at stake. But at the end of the day, and to an extent, the market is very non-emotional about this when it comes to determining the true value of your home. So as much as you can, I really want you to stay logical. And I think a lot of the information I give you today will help you orient your mind in the right way so you're better able to do that. Because if you don't, you're going to end up wasting a lot of time and money. And there's just no reason that you should have to do that. So when it comes to staying logical, to help you orient your thinking in the right way, I want to talk about supply and demand. And I think this is really going to help you as a fallback. If you end up finding yourself getting a little emotionally invested in the process, that this will help your thinking. So you probably remember in middle school that you talked about in math class that XY axis. And in this case, when we're talking about the marketplace, we're going to be talking about price and quantity. So on this vertical axis, this is price. We've got a low price all the way up to a high price. And on the horizontal axis, we're going to be talking about quantity. Over here is a low quantity, and as you travel along here, it's a higher quantity. Now, who's in this marketplace? Well, we have buyers. That is the demand. They are the ones that want to purchase a house. And then we have suppliers, you. If you choose to sell your house and enter the marketplace, you now become a supplier. So let's take a look at their relationship with one another. First, you have the buyers. They are the demand. And this, again, is going to be an active buyer. So not somebody just sitting on the couch thinking about how they might want to buy a house. These are people who are actively looking. They're going to open houses. They're writing offers. Those are the people that we're talking about. So the way that their relationship looks in terms of price and quantity, it's like this. When price is really high, we don't have a whole lot of buyers. But the lower and lower the price goes, the more and more people who want to race to the marketplace and buy a house. Now, when it comes to the sellers, they are the supply. Their motivation looks just the opposite. And we're going to look at them like this. So, supply. When price is really high, out here you have a ton of people who would love to sell their house. I mean, you might love your home, but come on, at the right price, you'd probably be willing to sell it. But as the price goes down, 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 then you have less and less people. They're saying, I don't want to be in the marketplace. This isn't worth it. Now, here are the sellers. Here are the buyers. Where they cross in the middle, that is the point of equilibrium. At that point in the middle, that is the true market value. Right there, you have the right people in the marketplace at the right price, and both sides are coming together saying, yep, we're willing to play ball at this point. So that is what I really want you to keep in mind, is that it is the market, not you, that determines what the true value of your home is at the end of the day. And the way to think about it is that you cannot game the market beyond its own constraints. Okay, so now we have that frame of thinking that you can always go back to at the end of the day if you find yourself getting a little bit emotional. Next, we want to understand, what is the marketplace for real estate? Because in some areas of the country, the real estate market goes into hibernation. It's kind of like in the middle of a snowstorm trying to sell flip-flops. Nobody is buying flip-flops in the middle of a snowstorm. The market just isn't happening. In that case, for flip-flops. But let's think about real estate. In Boulder, Colorado, and nearby along the Front Range, that market for real estate, it is happening all year long. There are certain times of the year where you have more houses on the market and more buyers interested in purchasing homes, but it is happening all year long. Just like flip-flops are probably being sold in Southern California, probably all year long. So in Boulder and along the Front Range, you will have less buyers in certain seasons. So especially when it's cold and at the end of the year, that is when you have the least amount of buyers in the marketplace and the least amount of supply in terms of houses being sold. In the late spring and in the summer is when you tend to have the most amount of people who have entered the marketplace. It still does pick up in January, which is unique for this area because other areas market is still in hibernation mode. But here, the reason why there are more buyers during that time of year is because you tend to have more families. They have a bit more wiggle room and flexibility in their schedule because kids aren't in school and they're not as much needing to stick to routines. Also, people tend to be more motivated to figure out where they're going to live before the school season starts. Now, just because the market is the most busy in the late spring and during the summer, it doesn't mean that that might be the most advantageous time for you to list. So let's keep talking about some of the other forces that might be involved in your strategy in terms of when you decide to list. The next point I want you to take into consideration is interest rates. If there are any leading indicators that can show us when interest rates might be increasing or decreasing, that's really something to take into consideration because you want to think about this again from a market perspective. When interest rates are low, buyers have more purchasing power. So to them, it's kind of like a house is cheaper. And again, when that price is lower or that purchasing power is lower, more people are going to enter the marketplace. But if interest rates start to increase, more people decide, you know what, I'm just going to sit this one out. I'm going to renew my lease for one more year. And that can really affect you as a seller. So if you have any sense of what's going to happen in the near-term future, let's say it is January, but you know that by the summer, it's predicted that interest rates are going to really increase. Well, then maybe now it's time to hustle. It's time to get ready and put your home on the market because you will have more interested buyers looking for houses like yours. But say maybe it's the summer. It's usually a really busy time and you have a great house. And you know, though, however, interest rates are expected to go down in the winter. Well, then maybe it just makes some sense for you as a seller to hold on to your house for a little bit longer. Maybe you even have more time to refresh the paint, maybe stage it a little bit, remove some more of the clutter of your home, and it makes sense to list later. So that is another thing to keep in mind are interest rates. Now, the next thing we want to talk about, again, is coming from the buyer's perspective. In this case, when I mention the market, we're talking really here about the buyers, those active people looking to purchase a home. And there are several things that are going to affect what they perceive to be the value of your home. Some of these things are very fact-based and we can't change that. And other things have to do with the perceived value. But let's talk about the facts first. So what are the facts that affect the value of your home? Well, the first is location. You hear about location, 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 and it is so true. And here's a way to think about it. Let's say that you own a home in the middle of the city of Boulder, and there are probably going to be quite a few people who want to purchase a home just, somewhere where it's convenient because the roads are somewhat plowed in Boulder and you're close to a grocery store, you're close to work, you're close to school. So that pool of buyers is pretty big. But then let's say that you head up the canyon, way up a four-wheel drive road that's not plowed, that's hard to get to, and your pool of buyers really shrinks. And so then when you have less buyers, they're not going to be willing to pay as much of a premium, say if all other things are equal in terms of the quality of the house up in the mountains versus the quality of the house down in the middle of the city. So that is something that is going to affect the perceived value of your home. The next thing is going to have to do with the amenities. And this, again, unless you take on a big remodel or add an addition, it's not something that you really can change. But it is something that you want to consider when you're looking at the competition. So let's think about how many bedrooms your house is, how many square feet your house is. Do you have covered parking or a garage or a fenced-in backyard or a basement? All of those kind of aspects about your house are going to affect what the market believes is the true value of your home, what it's going to sell for at the end of the day. And then the next thing, in terms of just cold hard facts, buyers can look at it objectively and say which house is worth more than the other. It's going to have to do with the condition of your home. So of the condition of your home, if it's newly updated, it's got a lot of nice new modern finishes, well, then that's going to increase the value of your home, that true value of your home. But if you have a lot of deferred maintenance, your house needs a lot of work, maybe it's really out of date, then that is going to lower that value of your home. So those are the facts in terms of that buyer pool coming in and deciding what is the true value of your home. But the next aspect has to do with the perceived value. Now, this perceived value is so important and is the thing more than anything that is going to affect the strategy in terms of when you decide to list your home. So let's try to look at this from the buyer's perspective. So let's think about a buyer coming into the market for the weekend. They're looking at houses. Now you decide to list your home, and so does 4 other of your neighbors. Oh, great. Now, this might be wonderful news for you or not such great news for you. And let's talk about why. So say now there are 5 houses being listed at the same time. They're all the same price and they all generally have the same amenities. They're built around the same time. They have similar updates. They all have that fenced in backyard. All of that is pretty equal, except one of those houses is in much better condition than the other house. So what do you think the buyer is going to see? They're going to see that one house in the best condition, and then they're going to see the other 4 houses. And do you know what these 4 houses are saying to the buyer? Hey, buyer, you're absolutely right. This house over here, it is worth a whole lot more than us. And what's that buyer going to do? Say, yes, you're absolutely right. Thank you. Run on past those 4 houses and go put an offer in on that first house. And this is really important to keep in mind. And the reason why is because let's take this story a little bit further. So this buyer, most buyers, they're looking for the best value when it comes to purchasing a home. So they look at one house and they say, this is the best value, I'm going to put in an offer. At this point, you might think that the buyer is going to be logical. They're not. We're human. We're not super logical. And so you could say, okay, buyer, you put in a lot of time and energy and on writing this offer, but now 3 other offers come in. It's a sunk cost. Why don't you just let it go and go look at these other 4 houses? But I got to tell you, based on my experience, that is not the first thing that happens. The first thing that happens is people get more emotionally invested. They say, well, I thought it was a good deal. Now I really know that it's a good deal because there are other buyers who are also putting in offers. And so they dig in even deeper. They turn around to their real estate agent, if they're working with a real estate agent, and say, I'm going to offer more. And what happens is the other people say, I'm going to offer more. And there is a bidding war on that one house. Now, maybe that buyer wins in the bidding war, but there are still other buyers who are turning around. And if they're serious about buying a house, they're going to look at those other 4 houses. And your house might be one of those 4 houses. And you know what's going to happen? This buyer is a little bit hardened by the realities of the world. They're not so optimistic. They're looking at your house and thinking, this wasn't even the house that I wanted. I know it's not worth as much. So they're going to want to offer a lower price. They're going to want to negotiate with you. They might be asking for a credit. And so at the end of the day, you end up having to lower your price and get involved in negotiations. It is not smooth sailing. So there are a few things you can do in this situation, because what you really want to do is list your house at that true market value and get under contract when goodwill is high, when everybody's happy, when everybody's fresh faced. That is the ideal situation. So now you might ask yourself, and you really need to take a hard look at this, is look at past listings and maybe take a peek in your neighbor's window, but start to understand, how does your house compare to the competition? Because if you do not have the best house on the block, well, then maybe if you're serious about listing in the summer when there's lots of other competing houses in the market as well, maybe you're going to lower your price. Or maybe you say, I don't want to deal with that. I want this price. So then maybe you decide, you know what? That's fine. I'm going to list my house in the winter when there tends to be only more serious buyers and there tends to be less competition. But that's the kind of way you want to start to couch your thinking in terms of deciding what makes the most sense in terms of when to list your home. And if you have any further questions about this, you're welcome. If you're in the Boulder area and thinking of selling, you're welcome to go to my website. You can get on my calendar and we can have a conversation for 30 minutes and I can help you with this thinking and this strategy. But before I let you go, there is one last important thing, that it is the thing that most affects that actual sale price of your home. And unfortunately, it's completely out of your control. And this has everything to do with who happens to be in the market at that point in time when you choose to list your home. And I have seen this so many times. And that is, you list your house, and if you only have one interested buyer, generally what happens is you go under contract and your home tends to sell at what you listed it for, if you listed it at the true market value, if you came in pretty close to that amount. Now, if you have just one more buyer who happens to be in the market at that same time you listed your house, because maybe that one buyer, they flew into town because they got a good deal on flights. So they came in the same weekend that you listed as opposed to the following weekend. All of a sudden, you have two buyers, and that will start to increase that sale price of your home because they both get invested and then they both decide, I'm going to start bidding on your house. And that can increase that sale price of your home by 10,000, by 30,000. That's pretty easy and pretty normal. And if you have a luxury home, it could be a whole lot higher than that. So that is unfortunate news, because as much as we talk about strategy, that will actually be something that hugely affects that sale price of your home. And it's outside of your control, but it is important that you have real expectations, because usually the closer our expectations are to reality, the happier we tend to be, the less stressed and perturbed we tend to be by whatever happens and comes up in life. So I just want to share that information with you as well. So just to recap, when it comes to the strategy of when to list your home, we really want to stay focused on the market in terms of that buyer perspective and thinking about supply and demand and when it makes the most sense to list your home at that true market value. And there are things that are within your control and things that are outside of your control. But you probably want to take a very close look at the competition, see where you line up with that competition, and decide, are you willing to put in a lot of work so you are the house that has the highest perceived value at any point in time? Or would you rather wait and maybe when there's a little bit less competition? So I hope this information is helpful for you and makes you feel a little bit more confident in terms of your strategy and when you choose to list your home. Thanks for your time. I wish you the very best.